One of the things that I have realized I use a lot, there is this theory called the Balanced Scorecard, and it starts in the middle with strategy, then you've got finance, organization capacity, process and customer. That for me is my go-to in my head whenever I have to quickly judge a situation. So for example,
Today's guest is Marina Robertson, owner and director of Berkano Consulting, a specialist advisory firm helping leaders and organizations amplify their impact. Marina is a seasoned transformation leader. She delivers results in complex settings and a balance of long-term vision with short-term wins.
Can you tell us what you're up to now? Tell us about your company.
I have set up my own company called Berkano. When I was looking for what to call the company, I thought I'm Greek, so I thought maybe something Greek. I came across these ancient runes, and one of those, the B, is Berkano, and it stands for new beginnings, growth and regeneration. To become a team leader, suddenly you have to stand in front of people and speak. You have to attend interviews. Nobody would know this, but for me it has been one of the biggest learning curves of my entire career.
And there'll be so many people listening that will be like, me too. In your experience, do you think that there's something different about entrepreneurs and founders to the rest of the community?
Everyone is a construct of nature and nurture, and with that nurturing comes the way our brain develops and the way we see situations and process information. Those people that tend to do more entrepreneurial work have developed neural pathways that allows for a greater appetite to risk.
Along the way, don't tell me there hasn't been some really, really difficult times for you going through that journey. So let's look at those, and let's just also assume that they will have probably built up the same neural pathways that are now enabling you to make these difficult decisions. Let's dive into that.
Listen, there were a few things that I learned. It's invaluable.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Founder Stories. I'm Donna from The Engine, and I'm delighted that today I'm joined by somebody that I actually used to work with. It was nearly 10 years ago now. We were together in a much different environment to what we're in now, and we actually lost contact for quite some time, and we've come back together as two female founders. So I am delighted to introduce to you all and to welcome Marina Robertson. Hi Marina.
Hi,
I can't
Donna.
believe this. This is like a weird dream. Here we are on the Founder Stories couch. Neither of us were even thinking about being founders when we worked together in 2017. And we'll tell everybody what that was all about at some point during this session. But before we do, can you tell us kind of what you're up to now? Like, tell us about your company.
So lovely to see you. It's been a long time, but it's always as if there has been no time with the good friendships, isn't it? So I'm very, very glad to be back in touch and to see how wonderfully you're doing as well.
Thank you.
So I've just gave up a group managing director role for a group of companies in Birmingham, and I have set up my own company called Berkano. When I was looking for what to call the company, I thought I'm Greek. So I thought maybe something Greek, but everything just sounded so cheesy in my ears. I came across these ancient runes, and one of those, the B, is Berkano, is the name of the ancient rune, and it stands for new beginnings, growth and regeneration. And I thought it is meant to be. Obviously, I looked online to see if the domain was taken, if there were any other companies called that. Weirdly, they're not. So I kept quiet while I was working my notice. And then as soon as I had the opportunity, I registered it on Companies House. So the company is really to help people amplify their impact, to help, because everyone is just so busy, and quite a lot of the advice and guidance and discourse that exists is about how do I become more productive in myself, how do I become more resilient. And I think all that is really, really important. And, I've had some experience and a bit of a journey on that. But also because there is an aging workforce in the built environment sector where I work, there is experienced people will very soon retire. I'm 52 myself, so I'm quite an older founder. So the aim is to give back to help future leaders, the future of the construction industry, the built environment industry, the people that will shape the places and the experiences people have from those places, to give them tools to supplement some of the experience that will not be in the market, because these days is not like 20 years ago. People would go in a job and amass 20 years experience before they moved on. So yeah, that's really the purpose of it.
Wow. So we've given the audience a little bit of a clue to your background there, which is mainly in kind of built environment, and that's where we met. So people actually might be surprised to learn that I was actually in the public sector at one point as well. We were both in kind of local government together, which
For
is
a public sector-owned company, though, Donna.
Oh,
You did
okay. Sorry, I'll get it right. Yeah, it wasn't actually working in the public sector, but it was very local government kind of bias, which is a huge, and you know, I speak to founders with lots of different beginnings, and they've come from lots of different environments, but usually that is from corporate, and they've gone, oh, corporate life isn't for me, I'm going to go and do my own thing. Or they've always known they were entrepreneurial. And you know, we had Luke on the couch the other week. He's selling sweets out of his bag when he was 9, and he always knew that he was going to have his own business. So coming from the environment that you have had majority of your career in into doing your own thing is a huge cultural change. So congratulations. You know, I do take my hat off to you, and I think it's a fantastic idea to be able to take some of those skills into a smaller business. But tell everybody about one thing that always struck me about you was your passion for the built environment and for places. So just so that we get a flavour of who you are and what makes you tick, tell us a little bit about that.
I never really was one of these people that knew what I wanted to do. I'm originally from Greece. I came to the UK at a time when everyone was sharing experiences around Europe, and people were moving quite freely around. So quite a lot of people were moving around at the time. So I decided to come to the UK too. I know I'm going a little bit back now, but it has shaped, I suppose, my journey. And I came to the UK, just experiences. I was always after experiences, adventure. I wanted to live an adventurous life. Anyway, I ended up going to university here and doing some postgrad, and I started applying for jobs. And the first job I ever got was for the Wembley project in Brent Council. At the time, it would seem weird to people, but the applications were done by hand. Yeah, and that's how I literally just fell into the built environment. I was always very interested in how people shape places. So not only, obviously, the people that live in places, how they shape them, but also how people that shape places. So what kind of person does it take to be an architect, a surveyor, an engineer, and what makes people go into those professions? Professions that, if you work in the public sector, are not particularly rewarding. The public sector, at least in the UK, and some consultancies, don't reward expertise. The reward structures are aligned around team leadership. If you're a really good engineer and you just really love engineering, the only way really to earn more money is either to move to the private sector or to move up and manage people. And obviously the best engineers move up to manage people, but they end up doing a lot less of what they were really good at. So there is a gap being created. So that thing always fascinated me. And I was very interested in organizational psychology, how change is managed, how people feel through change. In all my roles, I have felt the people element a lot. And I use the word felt because I really did. I could see that some people were judged perhaps unfairly. They had not been given the tools to excel in something. And that's part of the reason that I set up Berkano, is to help people give back some tools to help them excel and be happier in their working lives, be more fulfilled. So I don't know if that answered the question. I went.
It did, and it's a really good take on it, because it's not I love spaces from isn't this a beautifully designed building? It's that what was the person thinking? Like, what type of person was behind this exciting building? So that's a really interesting take.
Yeah, and the social circumstances. So, for example, as we're moving through towards an era whereby we need to be more carbon conscious in the built environment, will the places change, and perhaps will we look to build less in terms of design to reduce the carbon impact of the buildings and the places we build. And it will be interesting to see how the discourse progresses and what people in 100, 150 years' time, they will look back and say about our era and what social change influenced the places we created. Because I believe that we create places, we're stewards of places, but really we look after them for someone else. We're in a brilliant building here in Clerkenwell. It's really old from what it looks like. How many people have lived here? What kind of profession? So all that, how people relate to the environment and how that shapes it is really interesting. But the people and being fulfilled in their lives is very important to me.
Yeah, which I've definitely seen throughout my time that I've known you. And you mentioned just now, you said, I know I'm going back a bit. I'm actually going to push you further back now. Because something that I think, we were very good friends when we worked together, but I don't know much about you pre that role. So I know that you came to the UK at 18 from Greece, and you've just alluded to why you were looking for adventure. And at the time, obviously, it was a simpler time. We won't mention the B word, but it was a simpler time and you could freely move around. So that's great. But let's go pre that and tell us a little bit about you growing up and what the environment was like for you then, and the kinds of things that you aspire to do, and what kind of child and teenager you were.
I was a very good child. I was very adaptive, we would call it now. So I come from a very traditional Greek family, traditional in all sorts of senses, both in terms of very close family bonds, large extended family, so really big functions, very religious, and religion being part of the culture, not just faith. There are lots of customs in Greece that are centered around, being Greek Orthodox is an identity, and a lot of customs are centered around that. So, so I always observed everything. I was quite, I suppose, an introverted child. I always observed everything around me. And my first thoughts were, I want freedom. So I started reading when I was very young. I'm still like an avid reader. I read more than 150 books a year.
Wow.
I just love reading. So I started reading and my teachers, and I started reading the classics, and I created worlds in my head from those stories, and I wanted to live in some of those worlds. I wanted to live in, in England and in France and in Spain and India and Japan, and I wanted to experience it. And obviously, we were not a well-off family, so that was crazy. So sometimes when I travel now and I find myself in Tokyo or in New York or in Texas, I'm still, I completely revert like an elastic band to that young girl, and said, oh my God, when we we stepped off the airport in Texas and the Lone Star at the airport, I was calling my brother, because some of the cultural references that we have, are so aligned to the English-speaking world. So yeah, I always dreamt about living those places and experiencing those lives. So yeah, so I went on an adventure.
And did you have any ambition to go into a particular career when you were growing up? Was there anything that kind of you fancied trying your hand at, or you always just seeing what presents itself?
Listen, like any good Greek family, my parents want me to be either a doctor or a lawyer. You will hear that a lot from more conservative kind of cultures. So I was studying biology and physics and chemistry. I went more on the science route, and I'm fascinated by that. But as I have grown older, I'm also absolutely fascinated with people and how people. So recently, for example, one thing that is in my mind a lot is how we tend to codify things, categorize things. You're that kind of person. You will hear there are two types of people, that type and that type. There are like 12 star signs. There are like 16 facet types. I don't know how ever many Belbin profiles. We have this tendency to categorize. And when I was thinking about like the podcast today, I was thinking, how have we categorized the founders thing? Because I find that really interesting. So although I have a huge admiration for science, and I think if I was going to start again, I would love to do scientific research. I love the people element and how we have constructed a world that makes sense to us for every single person individually, but somehow there are some rules that apply to globally, and how compliant everyone is in society. I find that really fascinating because our society, the way it works, it relies a lot on people being compliant with the rules that we have set out. So yeah, so as I don't know if that answered the question. So a little bit of science, but always, again, fascinated by people and the constructs we create.
It's really interesting that you picked up on the categorizing the founders, because one of the reasons why I went down this rabbit hole was because I was actually on a psychology training course, and it was indicated on that course that regardless of what business they run or what they do, all founders are wired in the same way. And I think that on this journey, I've slowly unpicked that theory, because everybody who sat there has been completely different. There's characteristics in each and every one of them which are aligned. So an appetite for risk, for instance, seems to be coming through. Do you have a large appetite for risk, do you think? Do you think there is? Actually, let me ask you the question, because you've studied this and you know people very well. In your experience, do you think that there's something different about entrepreneurs and founders to the rest of the community?
The social justice person in me does not want to differentiate between people and something alluding to some people are better at something than others. However, the scientist in me does believe that we do create neural pathways when we're younger and find solutions to things through those neural pathways. So when a problem appears, when a problem appears, we need to solve something in our lives, we tend to use the well-trodden neural pathways because it is easier for our brain to do that than to create new ones. I have thought that a lot because obviously, as we said, my career is has always been the public sector. I'm 52 years old, so I'm a lot older. So I have thought about how the way I approach where my neural pathways take me really, really quickly, and my biases, I suppose, take me really, really quickly, to always question those and actually really consider whether there's something else. So I do believe they're wired differently, but not because someone else couldn't. I think everyone is a construct of nature and nurture. And with that nurturing come the way our brain develops and the way we see situations and process information. I believe that perhaps those people that tend to do more entrepreneurial work have developed neural pathways that allows for a greater perhaps appetite to risk. And perhaps they have done things and they have worked. So they have taken risks. It has worked. And then they kind of think everything will work. And that kind of approach, obviously, as they say, fortune favors the brave. So for me, that kind of conundrum is a huge challenge because, as I said, I've always worked for an employer. I've always been very strong on the ethics of public service, and I try to live a life of public service and lead in that way when I had leadership positions. So being a founder, I will need to carve new neural pathways for me. But I do also believe that my adventurous spirit will also help me in that. So maybe I already have some created and I just need to tap into that.
I 100% think that you will have, and not just from your sense of adventure, but there's something around early trauma, which I don't know if it's the same neural pathways because I don't have your knowledge on the science side, but there's definitely something about trauma, not necessarily just early trauma, dealing with difficult situations. So we just kind of take it down a step, just dealing with lots of difficult situations, which I just think make us more resilient. And actually getting older is an advantage to that because we will have had more crap thrown at us basically throughout our lives. As a woman new to the UK, in construction, in male-dominated environments, climbing the ladder to Group MD of a company, living in the UK now, you're married now as well to Gary, who's a ledge. But along the way, don't tell me there hasn't been some really, really difficult times for you.
Yeah, there have
going
been.
through that journey. So let's look at those and let's just also assume that they will have probably built up the same neural pathways that are now enabling you to make these difficult decisions. But let's dive into that.
Well, I think one thing that has been quite consistent, I have always, so to speak, run towards the difficult things. So if there was ever a difficult project to do, I would eagerly put my hand, choose me. Again, I always sought adventure, even at work, that constant learning, that something people may not know about me, and I get very frequently asked about that people sometimes when it comes to it, is I have gone to university a lot of times. Okay, so I have amassed a lot of university education. I will be frank, there was a time I was very defensive about it, but as I'm getting older, I'm like, no. Like, for example, when I sat for my MRICS interview, the earliest of chartered surveyors, I was asked, why do you have so many degrees? And I was taken aback. I'm like, what does that have to do with, being a chartered surveyor? So, and you find yourself trying to make the other person, not feel any less, or perhaps my own biases assume that the person would feel. So you're like, well, I really like learning and I really like structured learning. And as I'm getting older, I'm like, well, I had the ability and means, and because I know myself, I can't drift. This idea of actually going to meeting other people, studying something, a different discourse, using your brain in a different way, I just absolutely love it. Like in the pandemic, I did my MBA because, I used that time to do that. So learning has been a big thing for my life. And whether it's doing a course on neuropsychology, or I've started an executive mentoring and coaching course last week.
Just last week.
Yeah,
While starting the business, I'll also just do a course as well alongside.
because I feel the need to use my brain in different ways, and I feel I my brain needs to know that it's healthiest when it is not used in different ways.
Yeah. I had Holly on the couch the other week and she was saying a similar thing, not necessarily directed at learning. Everyone can pick their poison, but I think it's that never settling for this is me now, like wanting more and not more money or more stuff. And that's the mistake that, don't go down that path of always wanting more money and more stuff. And they will come if you just are constantly pushing forward. But for you, your choice is
My poison is that.
Your poison is you could
It floats my boat.
pick worse things than university degrees to get hooked on.
Yeah, it floats my boat. I don't know why. I love it so much.
And so you did the MBA in the pandemic. So the MBA is something that I'm always quite interested in learning about because it always divides the room in terms of its quality or value for money or effectiveness or how you then use that moving forward. Do you have any strong opinions on that? Or what's your experience been?
Listen, there were a few things that I learned at the MBA that I didn't know because I was older. 5 years ago, I was 47 years old. So I had already had, quite a 20 years career in leadership. And so you kind of, you have been trained to you pick up things. However, what it helped me, I suppose what it helped me define more is skills that people don't actually, how lucky I have been to have known all of those things. I was on the MBA with people that really struggled. And I didn't say I found it easy, but I found it easy. I'll say it. I find it a lot easier. So, but I was on a course with the people that really struggled through it. So, I think if you use what you've learned, it's invaluable. But if you don't apply it, it's just another article you read about something. So, for example, one of the things that I have realized I use a lot, and that was before the MBA and after, is this idea. There is this theory that in strategy called the Balanced Scorecard, and it starts in the middle. It's strategy. Then you've got finance, people, organization capacity, systems and process, and customer, and perhaps some sustainability thrown in there. That for me is my go-to in my head whenever I'm faced with I have to quickly judge a situation. Or if you ask me, for example, now, what is, I don't know, the future of local government? In my head, I'll go strategy. What does the future look like? Finance, what the finances will look like, how the residents will experience the future, what organization capability and skills and structures they will need, how AI will affect it. So immediately out of nowhere, I have a strategy. So, but that doesn't happen. You have to apply it all the time in order for that to work. And that's part of what I'm trying to do with a company as well. Develop a set of applied methodologies and skills that people can try over and over again on lived examples so it becomes part of them. Because if it becomes part of your thinking process, you're not going to use it.
Yeah.
And that is the reality of it. But I've learned also a lot in my MBA facts about things I didn't know, like about that experiment was it in Stanford, where they took the performance appraisal of someone and they put a female name and a male name, and they gave it to people to judge how good that person was. And every single person judged the female worse performing than the male. So these kind of things, it opens your eyes.
100% of the people.
I can't, but look it up because it's an experiment.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff kind of blows your mind. Or I learned about, do you know about the, what is the McDonald's burger called?
The Big Mac.
The Big Mac.
Yeah.
There is a Big Mac economics in the world.
Right.
Whereby supposedly the big bucks should cost the same in terms of resources in every single country. But when you look at the prices of Big Macs across the world and the exchange rates, it costs more for poorer countries to eat a Big Mac.
Wow, I bet literally nobody who's listening to this knows that. Look that up, everybody. That's
How's it called? God, it was just The Economist publishes it. Berger Economics or something like that, and they've just published. I saw the article the other day for 2025.
really.
Yeah, so you can. It opens your mind.
You just wouldn't have
right?
stumbled across that piece of information, would you? Just
It
kind
opens your
of.
mind. Oh, the other thing that I was fascinated, I learned so much about how finance and the financial systems are built on risk and effectively nothing.
Talk to us
So-
about that, because we've had.
No, I can't because I'm not competent enough to do it. However, please, the finance people that are listening to it, they will know this.
Yeah.
Like insurance is built on risk, futures, guessing what is going to happen in the future is built on risk. It's just absolutely fascinating. I find and someone with a public sector kind of ethos and a background, I was like, oh my God, our world is built on nothing. Or this company that kind of sells effectively clean air, offsetting carbon, or it's just really bizarre stuff that is going on in the world. And it kind of floats my boat. Yeah.
I can see why. Fascinating
It's
stuff.
fascinating stuff, and it's a kind of it takes you away. It makes your brain think differently,
Yeah.
and also challenges you. And I try to challenge by saying, is there any bias? What is wrong with that? Why do I suddenly think that there is something wrong with that? And challenging your bias, and yeah.
Has that made you stand out in a room most of the time, working in the environment that you've been in, where maybe it's a little bit more or less thought-provoking, shall we say? I mean, I'm not really sure what. I think we all have maybe a predetermined view of what local government, public sector offices look like, and I don't think anyone would imagine you in there with that type
You
of
know
thinking.
what? Local government, you have to be tough to work in local government because you have to work within a system that has built over generations, and you have to navigate that system to get things done. And the issue some of the local government has with modernization is respect for the system, respect for democracy. So, for example, the elected representatives, so the building blocks of that system are sound, and that's why it's so difficult to modernize it. I said, I will say it again, the people that have to deliver in an environment where they're constantly jumping through hoops to get things done, and for good reason, because they're dealing with public money. You have to show that you're being prudent. They're tough, and they deliver in a tough environment. So I don't think I am any different from anyone else that works there. And there are some amazing people. So the answer is no. As a Greek woman, perhaps I'm a little bit different. But that really stops after the first conversation I've had with someone. I've had things said to me like, since you started working here, your accent has become a lot better. And I'm like, it's good to hear, But I'm thinking, your ear has become more...
Just getting used to how you
Yeah,
sound.
and years later, I have that. So, perhaps I'm a little bit different because obviously you don't get many like me in a room full of people. But you know what? I have had a lot of privileges as well because of the color of my skin. So it's not poor me at all. I have been given a shot at life, and I have tried to do my best with it. Everyone should ideally be born equal, but unfortunately people are not.
I'm sure you don't mind me telling people that actually the first time we met, because when I was working in that role, I was in talent. So I don't know if you remember.
No, I do remember because you were amazing.
First time we met, I think was your interview.
Was it?
Yeah, I
Oh
think
my
so.
God.
So I will have seen 13, 14 people for that, and I was on the panel. And you stood out in ways that I could not even describe, but it was nothing to do with how you said it. It was what you said that stood out. It was
Oh,
not
that's
anything to
really good
do
to
with.
hear. Thank you.
So, I'm sure there have been challenges. You're just very, very good at dealing with things, and I'm sure that. I mean, what about the take away the public sector piece for a moment? You know, you and I have done events around women in construction, and how has that moved on? Like, is that still a difficult environment for women?
You know what, Donna? Do you remember that first, well, it was my first large public speaking event.
I do. I've got a
Yeah.
photo of it on my phone. Yeah,
Have you? Will you
yeah.
send it to me?
I will, and I will share it on the podcast as well. Yeah.
So I have it has taken me a very long time to find my voice. And that is something I'm really passionate about. So if you have not gone to public school, if you have not been in an environment where you're trained in public speaking or debating society, articulating your thoughts off the cuff, really, you find it really difficult. I mean, some people are naturally talented. I wasn't. And also, if you have an accent, you are very aware of it. So I was extremely nervous in that. During the pandemic, I was asked to do a podcast with the Leaders Council. I heard it back after it finished about how the industry was responding to the pandemic. And I heard it back and I cringed so much. So listen to this, right? I went and got elocution lessons. But they didn't work. So this is me now with elocution lessons, right? But I don't sound any different.
I'm telling you now, it's a waste of money because you sound exactly the same to me as you always do.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Which is very fine as well. I've never ever asked you to repeat yourself, not once.
Thank you for saying that. And weirdly, they asked me to do it again the following year. Anyway, so I have found public speaking a huge challenge. So that event was a big deal for me. We went to was it Pizza Express? Prezzo, the night before in Trafalgar Square. And my heart had started beating fast from that night. But you know what? It may not have been the best speech in the world, but I did it.
It was amazing.
Oh, God. No,
and I was on the front row like a fangirl, like.
But do you remember, like, the woman that came after me, the American, that was just incredible? And I just I was like, oh my God. But I did it, you know. Feel the fear and do it anyway, as they say. And so what I in my previous role, we were managing part of a construction framework called Constructing West Midlands, and we pulled together a public speaking initiative. So people that were working the companies of the framework and managing partners, they would come together to practice public speaking in a safe environment, get feedback, get used to it. So somewhere down the line, something like this, or being involved with a charity around that is really important to me, because you want to earn more money, as I said earlier, you become a team leader, suddenly you have to stand in front of people and speak. You have to attend interviews and speak. And to think how far I have come on that is, nobody would know this, but for me it has been one of the biggest learning curves of my entire career.
And there'll be so many people listening that will be like, me too. And why does everyone expect? I mean, you're Group ND, you've had top of the tree job titles for probably like the last 10 years maybe, and you're right, those titles come with a certain expectation that you can be wheeled out at the drop of a hat to talk
and they say something really profound.
Yeah,
that
everyone's listening. Oh, it's the Group MD, and you're like having a mare. But it's very common actually in our founder group. We had Luke here last week, a few weeks ago, sorry, and he's a serial entrepreneur, investor, involved in lots and lots of businesses. And afterwards, he dropped on me that was one of the scariest. He was absolutely terrified about doing a podcast because he's naturally introverted. And actually admitting that, I think we're here to help people, as you say, and people will listen to that and they'll think, okay, I can still go for the roles that I want to go for. I can still live my dreams. I don't have to be all over Instagram and on, doing big public speaking events. But actually, it also helps, as you say, to get training on that, because until you actually go and do it.
Yeah, everything you learn, unless you apply it, you can't. It doesn't become part of you. The moment it becomes part of you, then, you've carved your neural pathways. You will always go down that route first.
You're so right. It might surprise people to know that I spent my first ever networking event at Norwich City Football Club in the toilet for the entire time. I just hid for 4 hours. I just could not come out. And then you come a little bit further, and then the first time you actually infiltrate a conversation, and you just feel as though you're building that muscle. And I still now walk into a room of people, and I absolutely, something inside me just got a terrible reaction to it. But as soon as I start talking to people, it's fine. So yeah, absolutely, you need to do the application piece as well. Okay, so I feel like we've drilled into your why and your past and your journey, which has been great, by the way. I've been like, was so fascinated. So let's now talk about the future for you. And I'd love to, if possible, pick your brains for some words of wisdom, if we can, because we do have aspiring founders listening to the podcast. Some of them will be very early on in their career, very young. Some of them will be closer to our age, and that really doesn't matter. And I think that's an important lesson. I'd love to get some advice, some kind of tips from you of anybody that's looking to start out on that journey, or is going through it at the moment, or thinks that age or anything else, or where they're from, or their accent, or anything is going to be a blocker from them. So I'll leave that one for you to think about for a second. But obviously, you have finished the Group MD role now, so you're out of the world of employment. No pay slips for you
6 weeks
anymore.
now. No,
It's not coming. It's not, that pay slip is not coming. It's a scary thought, right? I remember it well. And you're now embarking on this new journey. So what's next for you? And you just touched on AI very, very quickly a second ago. Are you using that as vehicle at all? Like, are you pro AI, and how do you see the future of your business and of the business in general?
I'm definitely pro AI. Of course, like humans that we are, we will look after ourselves, and we can misuse it. But that goes with everything. So I am pro AI. I think it can really help productivity. I don't think it can replace experience, perhaps, but I do think it can help a lot with productivity. I really liked the quote I saw someone. I'm really sorry. I asked the person that said it, forgive me. They said, I would like a world where AI does a lot of the day-to-day grind, and I spend time drawing, rather than a world where I do the day-to-day grind and the AI spends time drawing. So releasing time to hopefully with AI, the world will get to a place where we have more time to do the things that make us human, really, that excite us, and the adventures and spending time outdoors or with our families, and or pursuing our cultural interests. What allows us more time to spend it then. Perhaps in the future, AI will allow us to have shorter working weeks, be more productive in our day, and I am an optimist in that regard. I really believe that if we use it well, and if we don't pile up more work on us, it can really help the human race see the world a little bit differently, and people live their day-to-day lives a little bit differently.
Because you're still that person that came here when you were 18, you're still adventurous. And that's really a huge part of who you are. And, when you've just set up your own business, and probably the last thing you're thinking of is when you're going to get your next day off. But ultimately, there must be a higher power there. There must be something that's driving you. And I imagine that is having the time to go on more adventures and do more things. Is that definitely on the cards for you now?
I think so. I would like to live my life a little bit differently. But also, I'm someone that gets a lot of satisfaction from doing purposeful work. By doing purposeful work, I don't mean I'm a saint. What I mean by that is work fulfills me, is one of the reasons for being. So, as I said earlier, I have this real passion about using my experience, 25 years, to help people amplify their impact, use their AI, but also use some of the tools I'm developing or I'm applying to help them become more productive and achieve better results faster, so they can release some of their time. Yeah, that's I suppose where I come from on that.
And do you have aspirations, do you think, to maybe work a bit less at some point in the not too distant future? Is there a ambition there, or are you quite content with life as it is, and you just want to use your time now to kind of positively impact other people and give that a little bit back, as you said earlier?
To be honest, I haven't really thought what I would do if I could afford to not work. And that's the litmus test, really. I would probably look to do something, to give something back. But also, I would like to spend more time in nature. As you get older, and definitely as I get older, I kind of have more sense of my insignificance. And as an ant of a human being on a planet that will go for billions of years and suddenly will collapse. So
Finishing on a positive note.
Well, it's the reality, isn't it? So, and that reality, I think, makes you think, how do I want to spend the next however many years I've got left? And watching more sunsets and being on the beach more and talking to good friends and having a glass of wine over dinner and eating nice food has to be part of enjoying what life has got to give us. But I'm also someone that needs something to do. I'm not someone that can, or perhaps I cannot see that now.
Yeah. But it's very good advice that actually we should remember that sometimes when we have those days where we feel like actually the world is very heavy. Imagine yourself as the ant in this huge world, and actually feeling insignificant sometimes can actually release some of the pressure that you feel. It's like actually all doesn't matter in the end, and work is work. What actually matters are those moments on the beach or drinking a glass of wine with your partner or your friends. Those are the times that actually matter, and the things that you'll remember when it all blows up. I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And life is to be lived, and whatever that living looks like. And I'm very conscious that we see life like that because we're very privileged. We're very privileged, and other people in the world don't have the opportunity to see the world with optimism. And so we have a responsibility really to do something to make the world a little bit better, even if it all blows up in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a takeaway from this. So let's finish on, so how do we say it again? How's the business name?
Berkano.
Berkano. Okay, and that's B-U-R-K...
B-E-R-K-A-N-O.
Berkano. And this is an ancient ruin.
Rune.
And a new beginning is the meaning.
It stands for new beginnings, regeneration, growth, etc.
Beautiful. So what's next for Berkano?
Well, currently I am developing a series of modules that will be something like what I explained earlier, the Balanced Scorecard, where they can help future leaders amplify their impact because, as I was saying earlier, currently, at least in the public sector, you become a team leader to earn more money. And the training that you're usually given is how to manage people, not what tools you can use to create strategy, manage risk, develop a business plan, create a budget. So I'm calling it leadership hardware, and it is really those tools you need to be able to amplify your impact.
Amazing. I love the hardware reference. Because that's exactly what it is, isn't it? Is those tools that you need, that everybody needs, and it's such a interesting gap in the market, or such an interesting problem that you've found to solve as well, is that we are obsessed with climbing the tree, and often just climb the tree into completely strange territory, and haven't actually got a clue what to do when we get there, because we're not picking up this hardware along the way on the journey. So
Yeah,
just
absolutely,
so
Donna.
good.
And imagine, as a country and as a kind of planet, we need people to innovate, and we need experts. And if we take those experts, we stop them in their, mid-20s and 30s, the peak of their life, being experts, and we ask them to do something else. Our society misses out. We don't have the skills we need to deal with the future. And it is, we're not progressing as fast and are not able to deal with the problems that the climate presents, or the societal changes that are happening. Because those experts, in order to earn more money, they had to become team leaders or managers. It is just a huge loss to organizations and structures in the world and the way we respond to climate change if we don't invest in that expertise. And I suppose the role that my leadership hardware plays in all of this is, when you have decided to take the path to leadership, be as effective as you can be rather than feel lost. Because how often I have found, I hear people around me say, he or she, they're not very good. They've just taken up a team to manage, and they don't know how to manage performance. But they were the best engineer that company had. But suddenly they're not good. And if the organization doesn't feel you're performing well, trust me, the individual doesn't feel they're performing well either. There's hardly ever a situation where one of the two thinks I'm doing brilliantly. So it affects the person, because they spend a lot of time at work, their mental health. So the bit that I would like to contribute is to give these people, okay, you've made that transition, at least have some tools to be able to make you more effective, amplify your impact, and perhaps pass some of those on to someone else.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I am so excited about the launch. I can't wait to see it just land. And it goes without saying, anything I can do, the engine can do to help amplify that, then that would be an absolute honor and a pleasure. But I look forward to seeing where you take it. I'm sure it's going to be a huge success.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you so much,
And
Marina.
best of luck to you too. You're doing amazing stuff, and it's so, I feel so lucky to have been able to observe your own journey, I suppose.
I kind of feel like I'm making it up as I go along most days, but it's still been amazing.
It is your entrepreneurial spirit, and your energy and your pace, and how fast you go from ideation to creation. It's just really wonderful to observe, really.
Thank you so much. That's really really lovely to hear. But yeah, I'm sure we will definitely not leave it another 10 years now. We'll talk on the regular. And as always, I'm sure if anybody wants to get in touch with you to find out more about the business, or they've been inspired by anything that you've said today, I'm sure that, as always, you will have an open door, because that's just who you are.
Absolutely.
So please do link in with Marina.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to people, and if they have any ideas about leadership hardware or anything else, please let me know. I plan to soft launch it so that I can get some feedback, so the final product is refined to suit the market, really. So I will be looking for some organizations to work with to be able to kind of refine it a little bit more.
Okay, well, I'm sure you'll be inundated, but it was so lovely to see you. And yeah, we'll catch up again soon. Thanks, Marina.
Thank you, Donna. Take care.